be good to go.
Yep. All right, well, good evening, everyone. And on behalf of the Village of Cary and the Board of Zoning, Planning, and Appeals, I'd like to hereby call this meeting to order on this Thursday, November the 18th, 2021, at approximately 7:05 p.m. We have a quorum of members both present in Village Hall and online with us as part of a hybrid model due to COVID. And at this time, I'd like to ask our Director of Community Development, Mr. Brian Simmons, to please call the roll.
Graziano?
Here.
O'Loughlin? Jasper?
Here.
Williams?
Here.
Kretschmer?
Here.
Nats?
Here.
Stefani?
Here.
Corey?
Here. Thank you very much, everyone. We invite you to rise with us for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks very much, everyone. So, gentlemen, we have three cases before us this evening. The first one is going to be Illinois Motors, the second will be Swiss Automation, and the third is from the Village for text amendment. And for those of you that may not be familiar with our process, I'll just try to step through the process so everybody's aware of what we're going to do. I think one of the gentlemen has been here previously. What we typically do is we ask Mr. Simmons to give us an overview of the application, and then upon conclusion, members of the ZPA may have some questions for Mr. Simmons. Once we conclude that portion, we turn it over to the petitioner, and we'd ask that you speak to the microphone here. And for those of you that are unaware, we do record tonight's proceedings. And then the members of the ZPA may have some questions for yourself after your comments about your petition. Once we close that portion of the meeting, then we subsequently open up to the public for any comments that they may have about the petition. We then close that portion of the meeting. The members of the ZPA may discuss the case amongst themselves. We take a vote, and then that vote gets delivered back to our elected officials. So that's the process that we typically follow. So before I proceed, does anyone have any questions about the process itself? Okay. So without further ado, I'm going to call Village Case Number 21, ZPA 09001. The petitioner is Illinois Motors, and it's a conditional use for vehicle sales and a rental for used car dealership. The location is 711 Industrial Drive. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Simmons for an overview.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The request this evening, as mentioned, is for proposed use on Industrial Drive. The petitioner is seeking a conditional use for vehicle sales at the subject property of 711 Industrial Drive. A little bit of background on the property. The parcel is zoned M Limited Manufacturing District. As mentioned, they're seeking a conditional use for their proposed operation. The property was annexed into the village back in 1978, and the existing building was constructed on the property in the mid-1980s. Similar to a proposal that the petitioner proposed earlier this year, they're seeking approval of an internet-based dealership. There will be limited walk-ins at this location. The vehicles that would be for sale, offered for sale, will be stored indoors inside the warehouse portion of the building. And the operations would be Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and it will be closed on Sundays. As previously reported by the petitioner, they're looking to have a total of 2 employees on site, and they would continue the operation that they had approval for at 675 earlier this year. This would be a second location that would be dedicated to other vehicles that they'd be offering for sale. In reviewing the village's code requirements for this use, similar to the petition that was requested or reviewed at 675 Industrial Drive, the code has requirements for both vehicle sales and storage facilities. Due to the nature of how vehicles would be stored in the site, staff applied the storage facility use due to the vehicles would be stored inside the facility versus in the parking lot on the property. As a result, the parking that's provided for the existing property would be required to have a total of 13 spaces provided for the use, with there's an existing parking lot of 37 spaces. But obviously more vehicles would be able to be stored inside the facility that would be offered for sale. As with any proposal that is reviewed by the village board, the zoning board and the village board. There are various standards that need to be met within the Unified Development Ordinance for conditional use, which are summarized on the slide. Petitioner did provide information in their packet as far as how they believe the standards have been met in this case. But in summary, that the use would not be detrimental to or endanger the general welfare, would not substantially diminish or impair the values of property within the immediate vicinity, or not impede normal orderly development of surrounding property. Based on the information that was provided, and the petitioner can provide additional testimony for their operations, staff believes that the standards have been met in this case, and should the ZPA determine, concur with that assessment, and that the standards have been met in this particular case, staff would recommend that the ZPA approve a motion of recommending approval of a conditional use for vehicle sales and rental for a used car dealership for the property located at 711 Industrial Drive, subject to the conditions that are listed in your staff report. I'll be happy to answer any questions the board may have regarding this petition, and the petitioner is here as well that can provide additional testimony.
Thank you very much, Mr. Simmons. Before we turn it over to the petitioner, gentlemen, questions for Mr. Simmons? Okay. Sir, do you have any additional comments that you'd like to offer around the petition? Okay. Gentlemen, any additional questions for the petitioner?
This is just in addition to what you currently have there? Okay.
So, Mr. Navarro, this is Mr. Corey. I do have a question that I was discussing with Mr. Simmons. I've noticed, and first of all, congratulations. I see the way you're expanding your business, and I think, quite frankly, this speaks directly with the UDO that we just created not too long ago, talking about the framework of economic development. But my comment really refers around safety. You know, I happen to live nearby there, and I go up and down that road, and I know there's equipment going back and across the street because they're going into loading docks. But I've noticed before the expansion that there were semi-tractor trailer trucks physically parked on the street for whatever the reasons are, business related. My sensitivity is that you're about a quarter mile from the fire station. And if they were coming up there in an emergency mode, I often find myself scratching my head saying, would they be able to get by if your big trucks were in the street or if somebody was in a loading dock? So I just want to be assured that as you move forward with your business plan, that some of those trucks that we're seeing in the street are going to be off the street.
Keep off the street.
So you're going to have to come over here to the microphone.
Okay.
Forgive me. And
Yeah, 'cause I gotta record it.
yeah, thank you. Name and address. That would be helpful.
So what I ended up doing is we took over, we're going to be taking, after December 15th, I close on Coleman's next door.
Yes.
So what I'm going to end up doing is just, everything's going to be parked inside there. I'm going to make it actually a physical yard, enclosed, fenced, so there's no drama, no nonsense, because trust me, it's a busy street. As short as industrial is, it's very busy.
I agree.
And especially during business hours, it gets kind of overwhelming at times.
Yeah.
Because what's going on at Illinois Lift, everybody down the street, and you're right, semis do take up a lot of space, but I told everybody once, always make sure there's room that everybody can go by, at least one car, one truck can go by, no matter what. Sometimes I do unload on the street because I have to,
Yes.
because of the hours of operation, but yes, I'm well aware of that, 100%.
All right, so I just want to double check that the members that are online with us, gentlemen, could you hear those comments? I know there's a little bit of static online. Could you hear the petitioner's comments?
Yes, Patrick, this is the auditor.
Okay, perfect.
Loud and clear on this end.
Very good. Thank you very much. So that was my comment, Mr. DeVaro, so thank you for your response.
No
I
problem,
appreciate that. Anyone else for Mr. DeVaro? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
We'll open it up to public comment. I don't know if there's anyone here in Village Hall or online. Mr. Simmons is saying there's no one online to respond, and anyone here in Village Hall to respond? Okay, we'll close the public comment section. And gentlemen, before I call the motion, any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none. The chair will entertain a motion to recommend to the Village Board of Trustees approval of a conditional use for motor vehicle sales and rental for a used car dealership for the property located at 711 Industrial Drive, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report.
So moved. Second.
Thank you very much. Mr. Simmons, would you call the roll?
Sure. Nats?
Yes.
Stefani?
Yes.
Graziano?
Yes.
Jasper?
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Kretschmer,
Yes.
Corey.
Yes. So you have a favorable recommendation, and we'll wish you continued success in your business. I know you can stay for the meeting if you like, but if you're going to adjourn, we'll wish you and your family a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, guys.
And good luck with everything moving
You guys
forward.
stop by anytime. You guys are down the street from me now. so-
Yeah, exactly right.
You guys shouldn't be down by all the time. Brian drives by, just doesn't stop by.
He'll be able to walk by now.
He doesn't even come by. He's like, oh, I see you outside, but I drive right by all the time.
Well, good luck.
Thank you, guys.
And the way this will work, but I would stay in touch with Mr. Simmons. This most likely gets placed on, quote, the consent agenda, and more than likely, it'll be, approved, but Mr. Simmons would be in a better position. I think, is it going to be on the December 2nd meeting?
December 7th.
7th meeting?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Okay?
No problem, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody had a good evening.
Yeah,
Thank you.
continued
Thanks.
success.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, I will now call village case number 21 ZPA 10002. The petitioner is the Swiss Automation, and the request is a plat of consolidation, and the location is 185 Detroit Street. And at this time, we'll turn it over to Mr. Simmons for an overview.
Thank you, Mr. Corey. This item is kind of more of a housekeeping item related to expansion of an existing facility in the community. Swiss Automation, which is located on Detroit Street, just west of the intersection with Cary Point Drive, is looking to expand their existing facility in town. As you can see on this aerial slide, the property currently is over, the existing building is over 2 parcels, and a couple years ago, I believe 4 years ago, there was a subdivision of the adjacent property located to the east that created an additional lot that the company purchased for future expansion plans, which are now coming to fruition. Under the village code, there are provisions that a building cannot be built across property lines, even though the existing building is in that state. Going forward, any new expansion would need to be constructed on a single lot. So as a matter of related to the building permit that the company is obtaining from the village for this expansion, we requested that the petitioner seek a plat of consolidation to combine the 3 parcels into a single lot. So the item that's before you this evening is just that effect. It's creating the 3 lots, or 3 parcels, the 2 existing that the building is located over, plus the 3rd lot to the east would combine those into a single parcel. There is also a easement that runs through the adjacency of the 2 lots that are further to the east. That would be vacated so that the easement building could be constructed in that area, and the easement would be relocated to the eastern edge of the property line. Basically, there's 2 pages to the plat of consolidation is proposed. The one that shows the limits of the property and the parcel that would be combined at the conclusion of the consolidation, and also a signature page that meets the standards for the village's subdivisions within the village. So part of the planning commission's role or portion of the zoning board, Board of Zoning, Planning and Appeals, this falls under the planning commission responsibilities of the combined board. But should the ZPA believe that the recommend approval of the plat of consolidation, would recommend this evening that the board make a recommendation to the village board of approval of final plat of consolidation for KVM development for the subject property. The petitioner is online as well. They can provide additional information regarding the project if there are any questions regarding the proposed expansion or plat of consolidation this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Before we turn it over to the petitioner, gentlemen, any questions for Mr. Simmons? Okay, what we will do is turn it over to Swiss Automation for further comment or color on the application, if there is any.
No comments.
All right, well, thank you. And gentlemen, anyone have any questions for the petitioner before we go to public comment? All right. We have a few people assembled here in Village Hall, and I just want to double check if anybody wants to speak to this application or comment. And Mr. Simmons, do we have anybody online?
There's nobody else online.
Okay, we'll close the public comment section, and gentlemen, unless you have any questions, I'll call the motion. Chair will entertain a motion to recommend to the Village Board of Trustees approval of the KVM development plat of consolidation for the property located at 185 Detroit Street.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
I was waiting for you.
Mr. Simmons, would you call the roll, please?
Stefani?
Yes.
Graziano?
Yes.
Jasper?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Kretschmer?
Yes.
Nats?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes. So you have a favorable recommendation, sir, and it's the same example that we had with the previous petitioner. This will probably go on the consent agenda for December the 7th, but I would encourage you to stay in close coordination with Mr. Simmons, and we'll wish you and Swiss Automation continued success.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving on to village case number 21 ZPA 10001. The petitioner is the Village of Cary. The request is a text amendment from massage establishments, and the location is 655 Village Hall. And at this time, we'll turn it over to Mr. Simmons for an overview.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The request this evening is related to proposed text amendment that's been discussed at the village board level for a few months. There's been a few meetings with the board to discuss the establishment of local regulations regarding massage establishments within the community. As indicated in the staff report, the effort is in response to some issues that we've had with some of the businesses within the community, not all of them, but specifically there have been a few issues with a couple of businesses that have located within the community, and we've seen an increase of these types of establishments coming in the community in recent years. So based off board's direction, staff drafted some proposed regulations for their review, and that was discussed at a few committee of the whole meetings this year, specifically in July, September, and most recently in October, where the proposed draft ordinance was reviewed by the board. The committee of the whole recommended that staff pursue the adoption of the code as drafted, which required some changes to the Unified Development Ordinance, which predicated the hearing this evening, to review those specific sections of the code amendments. But also there's going to be new requirements for these types of businesses to require to obtain the local license in addition to any state licensing that they are required to obtain. So with that information, I'll be happy to go through what the changes are as proposed. But that kind of gives an overview of where we came from and where we're at as of today. So with the proposals this evening, obviously the zoning board, your realm is to review changes to the Unified Development Ordinance. The other changes that are to the licensing section of the code is a municipal ordinance that does not require review and opinion from this board, but is provided for reference. So you have the whole list, the totality of all the recommendations that are being proposed for the regulation of these types of businesses. Specifically under the Unified Development Ordinance, there are changes that are proposed to Chapter 2 of that ordinance, specifically for the use regulations. As proposed, we are looking to add a new land use category in the land use table for massage establishments. As you can see on the slide, it would be under the services section of that table. These are other uses that are in there currently, but we would establish a new land use of massage establishments that would require those types of land uses to receive conditional use approval if they were to locate within the B2, B3, or M zoning districts within the village. The use would not be allowed in any other zoning district within the community. Essentially what that would require is any new establishment that were to come into the village would have to go through a public hearing process similar to the meeting this evening, present their petition information as far as how the business would operate, receive approval from both the zoning board and then eventually the village board prior to operating and locating within the village of Cary. More specifically to the use, the land use, there would be additional requirements that we're proposing for within the Unified Developments for the operation of massage establishment. Those would go within Chapter 3 of the code, similar to other specific land uses that we've identified. This provides additional provisions that a proposed massage establishment would have to meet should they seek a conditional use to operate within the village. The information is summarized on the slide, but I'll be happy to go through in detail here to identify what the proposed amendments would be. But any establishment that would provide any sort of massage services, whether it be their primary operation is they only provide massage services at their facility, or a facility that provides it as a secondary service. As an example would be a chiropractor office in the village. Primary service that they provide would be chiropractic care, but they might also have massage services as well provided in their facility. Any establishment that would provide massage services would be required to obtain conditional use approval from the effectiveness of this ordinance going forward. Specifically, the provisions that staff is recommending be required within the Unified Development Ordinance would be that the establishment would have a fixed location, so they would have to be located within an enclosed building within the village of Cary and comply with appropriate standards for the operation within that type of structure. Also, licensing requirements, as mentioned, there, in addition to the Unified Development Ordinance regulations as proposed and for review this evening, the village is proposing to establish a local license for these types of businesses that each business would be required to obtain. It's a different section of the municipal code, specifically Chapter 5, which regulates business licenses and taxation within the community. Any establishment that were to be proposed within the village would need to conform to those licensing requirements, and specifically the provisions that are for both the facility that would be in the proposed section of 5.36150 and the general licensing requirements of 5.36160 would be evidence that could be presented before the zoning board for review as part of a proposed petition. I have a slide that does summarize those information here as well. Other location requirements that would be recommended for new massage establishments coming in the village would only be permitted within its zoning districts in accordance with Chapter 2 of the title, and that is the table of 2 slides ago that proposed the B2, B3, and M zoning districts as conditional use. 3B on this slide would be no massage establishment should be located within 1,000 feet of a pre-existing massage establishment. That provision is to limit how many there would be within a certain proximity to one another. Additionally, staff, as a board recommendation, would recommend a 3C requirement that there's separation from sensitive land uses within the village as well. So specifically, separation from a property line of a public or private elementary school, vocational school, state licensed daycare not within a residence, a library, or a place of residence, or a place of worship, excuse me. So if a new establishment were to come into the village, there would be limitations if they were within 500 feet or 1,000 feet of one of those existing facilities. It would not be permissible. If they wanted to locate within a shorter distance of that property, would require additional relief through a variance if to receive approval. So in addition to a conditional use, they would need a variance to that section. And 3D, as I mentioned, any use that provides massage either as an accessory or secondary use or as part of their operation, they would also be subject to those location requirements. So if a chiropractor office received approval from the village to operate within the village and they didn't provide massage services when they first opened, and they later added that service, by adding the massage service, they would need to receive a conditional use approval for that use, but also would have to be compliant with the separation requirements to other appropriate land uses. Finally, the last provision for the use provisions would be regarding signage. So any signage that's proposed, either exterior or window signs for the massage establishment, would need to comply with village requirements of Chapter 5 of the title, similar to other businesses located within the village of Cary. Briefly, just to summarize, as mentioned for the licensing requirements, this slide provide some of the detail that would be found within the proposed license requirements that would be subject to review by the zoning board should these UDO requirements be amended. Essentially, these speak to how the facility would operate, that they would need to provide hot and cold running water, adequate privacy provided for clients, and other operations as far as the facility. So as a petition were to be submitted before the zoning board for review, this information could be requested and provided as part of their petition to show compliance with the village's regulations. Similarly, for general regulations of licensing, there's items A through O on this slide. Again, these would be other items that could be reviewed by the zoning board for review of petition. It would also have additional regulations as far as how a massage establishment could operate within the community. Items on this list include hours of operation between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m., requiring that there be 2 individuals in a licensing establishment at any one time, a manager and also a licensed massage therapist, and then other provisions as summarized on the slide. I'll be happy to get in more detail if there's questions specifically regarding regulations, but these will be items that would be as part of a requirement in order to obtain a license from the village, but also could be reviewed as part of a conditional use request before the zoning board. As mentioned in previous slide or previous presentations this evening, any request that comes before the zoning board requires review by standards within the Unified Development Notice that are applicable. In this case, it is a text amendment, so we're proposing modifications to the village code as far as the regulation of zoning within the community. So under a text amendment, there are 3 standards that need to be met. The proposed amendment is not detrimental to the orderly development of the village. The proposed amendment shall not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community of the village. And the proposed amendment promotes the public interest and not solely the interest of the applicant. As information in the staff report, staff believes that the proposed amendment complies with these standards. They will not impede future development of the village, and based off recommendations from the village board to protect the public interest as far as the operation of these types of facilities going forward, and ensure that the local regulations are in place that provide for the safety of the community and the operation of these businesses in the future in the village. So in ZPA case 21-10-001, should the ZPA determine that the various standards have been met in this case, it is recommended that the ZPA recommend approval of the text amendments to Chapter 2 use regulations and Chapter 3 use provisions of the Village of Cary Unified Development Ordinance to the village board for their final review and consideration. I'll be happy to answer questions you may have regarding the case.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Questions for Mr. Simmons, gentlemen?
In the package that we received, there was additional information trying to differentiate between massage therapists and masseuses and all that. As I'm understanding what we're voting on here, as far as the regulations, if it's a massage establishment versus a massage therapist, they're one and the same.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. I got it.
So, Brian, this is for going forward, right? So everyone else is technically grandfathered in.
That's correct.
Yeah, a good question. So from a zoning perspective, yes, the existing uses, businesses that are established at the time that this ordinance takes effect are grandfathered in from a zoning perspective, that they're considered either legal conforming or legal non-conforming land use. So businesses that are located in the zoning district that would not allow the use would be continued to operate going forward at that point. But if they were to cease operation or a new business that came in one of those districts, they could and would not be allowed under this provision. Any existing business that's in the community with the licensing requirements, however, would be required to obtain a license for a massage establishment. It's just the zoning would, they would not need to require to get conditional use approval by this board.
Okay, just so, one last question on.
Sure.
Any type of massage given and payment is received would fall under this?
Correct.
Okay.
Do you know how many massage establishments we have in town currently?
Just going to ask that.
So, Mr. Nats, I didn't catch your question. Please repeat it.
Do you know how many massage establishments we have in town currently?
Existing, apologize, just bring my case file.
That's six.
We have, I think about 10
Oh, wow.
facilities in the community that provide massage currently. There are four, or no, more than four. There are, I think, 6 that provide massage-only services, and there are 4 that have, it's a secondary use that they provide to other services in their operation.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, other questions? Okay, we have a few people assembled here in Village Hall. I'm not sure if they're here to public comment. So when we do this portion, we just ask that you humbly state your name and address. As we mentioned earlier, it is recorded. It is a matter of public record. So if you'd like to go first, thank you.
Are you talking about the address of my business?
Whatever's comfortable for you. So if
Okay.
you just say your name and address of your business, that's fine.
My name is Liz Florine. I am the owner and sole proprietor of Touch Above Therapeutic Massage and Body Work, located at 212 Crystal Street in Cary.
Thank you very much. Did you want to make a
Yeah, I
comment?
did want to make a comment. I've been a massage therapist for over 18 years, and I have been specializing in medical massage therapy for people who are in need of pain relief, injury rehab, and pain management relating to soft tissue abnormalities. I am not a masseuse who has little to no training and provides general massage. I am a massage therapist who has knowledge of anatomy, physiology, and kinesiology of the human body with advanced skills in soft tissue techniques to address specific medical conditions relating to soft tissue abnormalities. I am speaking on behalf of myself and Barb Stewart, who is the owner of IMB Therapeutics. We, as professional massage therapists, realize that there are several businesses in the area as well as the surrounding areas that pose to provide legitimate massage services, but instead tarnish the reputation of the massage therapy profession, and these businesses need to be controlled. I am not completely opposed to the massage establishment licensing ordinance. However, I am opposed to being classified under this category of massage businesses that may be providing illicit services. These businesses, more often than not, call themselves spas, and they employ several people. These are the businesses that should be targeted and be subject to the new licensing ordinance. If hospitals, nursing homes, sanatoriums, and facilities with a healthcare worker who is duly licensed by the state are exempt from this ordinance, there is no reason why a reputable sole proprietor who is licensed by the state and providing medical massage therapy should not also be exempt from this ordinance. I am a healthcare worker certified in medical massage therapy, and I am licensed by the state. The only difference is I choose to be a sole proprietor in my field. Sole proprietors who provide medical massage therapy are not the problem. Sole proprietors who have conducted business ethically and have upheld the law, serving the community for several years without incidents, should also be exempt from this ordinance. We're not spas. We offer a valuable service based on medical massage therapy.
Thank you very much. Were there any other comments?
I just have some questions. I think Anthony bringing up.
So you're going to forgive me, sir. So just so everyone can hear you, you have to approach the microphone. If you just state your name and address for the record, that'll be appreciated.
Okay. My name is Tom Wendt, W-E-N-D-T,
Thank you, Mr. Wayne.
and my wife, Li Hua Tang, T-A-N-G, is the owner of Anytime Spa, which is located at 188 Northwest Highway, the old Electrolux vacuum cleaner place. So I just want to You know, you talked about the zoning. I don't know what zone that's in or if it's going to create a problem, but we're already an established business there. I couldn't agree with her more about the illicit activities that can go on, so I'm all for whatever you guys are doing here to keep the illicit type of work out of the city. But I guess my question was, as I was looking up on the screen, I see hot and cold running water. We're in the Electrolux office. We have 5 offices there. We don't have a bathroom there. The bathroom's public bathroom in the hall that our customers use. It does have hot and cold water, but in our unit itself, we don't. We gonna have a problem?
So let me try to respond to this as best I can, Mr. Wendt. So I should have explained this better when we were doing the public comment portion. I think you'll find that the group of people that are sitting here and are also on via Zoom are an open-minded group. This part of our discussion is not intended as kind of a question and answer period between yourself and ourselves. However, you bring up a legitimate question, as you may have heard me step through the process of when we go to make a vote. Perhaps this question that you're speaking to, hot and cold running water, might be something that the ZPA members would discuss further. I can make no commitment on their behalf because I think that's a discussion amongst the ZPA members. But that's the process of public comment. It is not intended to be kind of a back and forth between ourselves and the petitioner in this case, which happens to be the village.
Right.
But we will probably ask that question about grandfathered in and what that implies.
Okay. And then are we going to be able to see what these licensing requirements are for the village itself?
Absolutely. This process that we're going through right now is designed to be highly transparent.
Okay.
It's not designed to be secretive at all. That's why it's a public meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think the one comment that Mr. Stefani mentioned that I think is important here is that all of the businesses that are currently operating as a massage are approved. We're saying going forward, if someone wanted to come to town, they would have to comply with what is proposed in this ordinance. It's not passed yet.
We would appreciate that, to be honest with you.
And just to clarify that as well, so from a zoning perspective, that's correct. So that they're established use in the community, operating now, they would not have to go back through a zoning process to obtain a conditional use for their business now. And the zoning classification for your property is one of the districts that would allow the use going forward as well.
That was my concern.
Yeah.
Okay.
But from a licensing perspective, every business that does provide massage will have to come in and obtain an annual license, and they would have to comply with the standards for the license as well. So for the operation of the facility, there will be additional review that would be performed on an annual basis to ensure compliance with the licensing requirements of the community.
Okay.
Is that helpful?
Yes, very much helpful.
All right.
Yeah, and if you didn't have a chance to review the copy of the ordinance, I can provide that for you as well.
Please.
So you can have that and review that in advance of the village board meeting as well.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that wanted to speak? I don't know if we have anybody online, Mr. Simmons?
We have no attendees online.
Okay, thank you. So we'll close that portion of our meeting. And gentlemen, before I call this particular motion, are there any additional comments that you've heard this evening that you would like to review further? To the gentleman here, he's saying that he doesn't have hot and cold running water. Do we want to put a time frame in there that says perhaps give you a time frame between now and pick a date that they would have to have that available to their facility? Or do you just want to leave it the way it is?
In our case, it would not even be possible. There's no plumbing run into that unit whatsoever, sir.
All right.
Our customers.
Would you come back? You're going to forgive me. I just want to make sure that everybody can hear what you're saying. Even though I closed the public portion, we'll give you the opportunity to speak.
So in our case, that would be literally impossible. There is no plumbing whatsoever ran into that portion of the building that we rent. As you enter from the Northwest Highway side on the west entrance, our store is the first door to the right. Like I said, it was a vacuum cleaner store or something.
Yeah.
But walking down the hall, there's a men's and a ladies' room where the customers can freshen up or whatever, and then we actually, my wife or whoever's working there, we clean those bathrooms every day. In the beginning, when we moved in there, they were complaining that you're doing laundry there. No, we're not. We're cleaning your bathroom. The place was filthy.
Okay,
So we could never get water there,
All right.
just so you know.
thank you for the clarification. All right, gentlemen, now we understand that portion, so Mr. Graziano?
Yeah, just this whole hot and cold running water thing, to me, I don't know, I guess I wonder how the massage therapist cleans up afterward if we don't have that. Now, in this case, goes out the door, goes down the hall, there's hot and cold running water. Is that close enough? It's in the building. You know, somebody's gonna have to make an interpretation as to hot and cold water available. What does that mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. And just to kind of add to that, Brian, I just want to make sure that again, I'm understanding. So grandfathered in, you're stating, we vote on this, the village board votes on it, it passes, they're good until they have to reapply for their license. Then they have to follow the guidelines?
No, so there's,
Okay.
so it's a good question, good clarification. So there's two sections of the code that we're changing. And what's being reviewed this evening for the zoning board is the changes to the Unified Development Ordinance. Under planning law, basically how it's drafted here is that any use as existing, if we change the code, our zoning ordinance, they can continue to operate in their facility indefinitely until there's a change in their land use. When we changed our zoning regulations a few years ago to the Unified Development Ordinance, we did a number of changes, and that may have impacted some businesses in town, but they're continued to operate, indefinitely going forward. The provisions that would be under the village board's review are the licensing requirements. That's different than the conditional use that would be required to obtain. But every business that's in town now would be required to obtain a license for their facility. And that would be an annual license that they have to renew every year. And there's provisions, it's similar to the village issues tobacco or alcohol licenses for businesses, or video gaming for video gaming terminals. So every year those are renewed by businesses that provide those services. This would just be another license type that the village would regulate, and these types of businesses would be required to annually obtain that. And then if a new business were to come into the village from this date going forward and want to provide this service, they would have to receive both the zoning approval from this board and the village board in addition to their license application.
Got it.
Right?
Thank you.
So if I understand what you're saying, that this hot and cold running water thing is a licensing issue, got nothing to do with us,
Correct.
so to speak.
Correct, so to speak, yeah.
And also from our aspect, assuming we're going to call this a legal non-conforming use, even though it's a licensing requirement, I'm trying to parallel things here. I don't know. Would it be considered in that manner as a legal non-conforming existing use?
Yeah, so it's a good question with the water being provided, if it's not directly in the facility that they operate, it's not a UDO requirement, so it doesn't apply other than the use provisions that reference back to the licensing requirements, reference that section, so that condition would be something that would be under the purview of this board, should be presented in the future, but with an existing facility, that's something that we may have to review further to see how it would apply to these businesses to determine if that would need to be provided at some point to obtain a license. That's something we could review with our legal department to see if that would be non-conforming from that perspective with the licensing as well.
I'm guessing the way the text amendment and everything is written is based on best uses by other villages.
Correct. Correct. It's kind of sampled from model ordinances that are in the community area already, drafted to not create overly burdensome conditions on the type of businesses, but just to provide more oversight of the businesses in the community and about the village to have additional control as far as where they can go and how they operate within the community.
Okay. I assume Patrick knows all about sample ordinances based on his class that he took.
Not exactly. But it brings up a really important issue here, Mr. Simmons, which is that if this were to be adopted by the village through the ZPA and then subsequently by the elected officials, to the gentleman's point that's here, he's saying he has access to hot and cold water, but it's not in his facility. It's outside of where he does business.
Right.
How, if this was adopted at the December the 7th meeting, how quickly does that become an issue for people that are conducting business? Immediately?
So the proposed timeline from the village's perspective is looking at if this is adopted by the village board at the meeting in December, licenses would need to be obtained by all existing businesses by the, I think we established end of January, mid-February time period, and that would be good for the next year plus time period. So that would be a license for 2022 and into 2023. But that would be the time, if these are passed, we'll notify the businesses that they would need to obtain a license and then provide the information for them as far as that process to apply.
Okay. So in other words, if it were to pass, it's not going to be immediate. There's a little bit of time.
Correct. It's not day one that you need to be fully licensed and apply. It's basically the rules will be in place in the community, and then we'll notify the businesses of their need to apply and obtain that license and provide them a date to apply by.
All right. Understood. All right, gentlemen, other questions, concerns? Mr. Jasper, Mr. Williams, I know you're online with us. I'm just double checking to make sure that you have a bite of the apple here.
I'm good, thanks, Patrick.
All right.
It sounds to me as though the ordinance is focused on the business rather than the employees providing the services. Was there any differentiation between, and some of the comments in here from some of the folks, between an actual legitimate isn't the right word, but licensed massage therapist and, what you might call somebody else who isn't licensed?
Yeah, and Mr. Jasper, to your comment, I think from the way the ordinance is drafted is the state of Illinois issues licenses for massage therapists, and they're responsible for licensing individuals within the state. That's not an area that the village can license specifically individuals that are in the community, but any business location that is in the community, we can provide licensing for that if it's a matter of local concern. So that's why the ordinance as drafted speaks more towards the business and the operation of the business as opposed to the individual that is providing that individual service.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Jasper?
It does, but it kind of raises another one then. Is the intent of the village then to, when they're reviewing applications and such, to differentiate between the nuances of, what we will call a massage establishment?
So if I believe I understand your question. So
Yeah, what would be an example of that?
yeah, so it's looking at any business that operates within the community. These are the standards that would be established for that type of business. So we would look at the facility.
Well, yeah, let's take as an example this, the letters that were written in here. One of these people that currently operates as a single business, whether they're set up as just as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
doing the business. They're licensed by the state, but they still need a license to operate in the village. They're in the village now, they may not be in a zone that we have issues with. But, say they wanted to, move for better visibility into an area where we're looking to control. I guess the question is there an opportunity in here for the village to, make decisions based on those slight differentiations, or is everybody here getting painted with a broad brush?
Yeah, so I think if there was an existing business in the community and they sought to relocate, and these regulations are approved by the village, they would be subject to those conditions going forward. So if they wanted to move to another location in the community, even though they're an existing business, if they're moving to a new facility, they would need to obtain zoning approval for that new location. So if they're within a proximity to an existing business, or another land use, or going to a zone that doesn't allow it, they would have to obtain approval from the zoning board and village board going forward for that use. But if they're remaining in their existing location and do not, expand or modify that location beyond the existing footprint, they can continue to operate there indefinitely, provided they comply with the licensing requirements of the village.
So we would be the ones that would be making the decisions on these nuances between types of businesses.
Correct. Yep.
And how does this fall? Does this need then to go to the village for final approval, or?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. The text amendment is the evening. The zoning board's reviewing the proposed changes to the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. This amendment is village board final. So it would be a recommendation this evening to go to the village board, and they're the final authority on potentially the 7th. Should there be a recommendation this evening, they would make an ordinance that would approve whatever recommendation comes out of here for the Unified Development Ordinance, but also the other changes to the licensing chapter as well.
Okay. Was any kind of review done to identify the number of businesses in town that would that operate under these definitions, and how many are within the bounds of what we've defined here?
Yes. And I apologize, I didn't put it in this packet of information, but the information was provided to the village board in their meeting in October. Did include a listing of all the businesses in the community that currently provide massage services, and where they're located at, and what zoning districts they're located within. And I mentioned, I believe there's about 10 of them that are currently within the village that provide those services. As part of this public hearing process, we did notify all those businesses as well. We provided a letter to information that we had in file for the businesses of this public hearing, so they're aware of the pending changes. That would be for review this evening, and also for the village board.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Jasper?
It does.
Okay.
Could I just make a comment as I'm listening to all this going on here? I'm thinking in my simple mind, if we were talking about a barber shop.
Yes.
As opposed to a massage establishment, we can license the barber shop, but the state licenses the barber.
Yeah.
My simple view.
Hey, Brian, I got a question for you. So in 5.26.30 for the exemptions,
Say it again, please.
5.26.30.
Yep.
So something that kind of caught my eye, no licenses shall be required for hospitals, nursing homes, blah, 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 all the way down to, it says professional health services to individuals, including but not limited to the offices of OTPT, chiropractor. So like, how does that fit in with this? Because does that mean that if you're state licensed, you're exempt from this?
So a good example of that would be a chiropractor office or a
Yep.
chiropractor. They are individually licensed through the state.
Correct.
For their profession. As part of their service, they may provide some sort of manipulation as part of the chiropractic care.
Yep.
It's not a full massage therapy service.
Okay.
But that's as part of chiropractic care. There might be certain modifications or manipulations as part of that. So if it's specifically under that license, they would not need to be a massage establishment license.
Got it.
But if we have examples in the community of a chiropractor office that operates an office, provides chiropractic care, but they also license or contract with a third-party massage therapist to provide services in their facility. If they provide that other service in their facility, specifically massage therapy, that requires a license under the scope.
Got it. Thanks for that clarification.
So any other questions, gentlemen? I want to come back to something that Mr. Graziano mentioned, and I just want to make sure I understand it from where you sit, Mr. Simmons, because I think at the end of the day, you're going to be the one having to kind of enforce these facility requirements. So as it relates to the gentleman's comment, in hot and cold running water shall be provided. In your judgment, if someone exits his facility, but it's under the same roof and they can access hot and cold water, do we have a view here, or what is the view?
Yeah, the intent of that provision is that in the facility. That's
In the
providing
facility.
Service. So that would be, again, the question that I would need to review with our legal counsel on that as far as how it would apply to existing businesses in the community if that service is not already provided there.
All right.
But that would be, a new establishment coming forward would need to provide those facilities within.
Within the facility?
Correct.
All right, and we're talking about existing and there, all right, so I understand it now, all right. Okay, gentlemen, I think we beat that one up pretty good, but I just want to double check with everyone that you've had a chance to speak on this. All right. The chair will entertain a motion to recommend to the Village Board of Trustees approval of a text amendment to Chapter 2, Use Regulations, and Chapter 3, Use Provisions of the Village of Cary Unified Development Ordinance.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Mr. Simmons, would you call the roll, please?
Just point of order.
Yes, please.
Recommend approval of text amendments to Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 as presented in the staff report.
Very good.
Sure.
Yeah, very good. So I just want to double check with everyone that what Mr. Graziano just mentioned is acceptable to those that approve the motion.
William and Nats.
Williams and Nats, please.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Williams, is that acceptable to you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good catch, Mr. Graziano. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Mr. Simmons.
Graziano?
Yes.
Jasper?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Kretschmer?
Yes.
Nats?
Yes.
Stefani?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes. So, Mr. Simmons, you have a favorable recommendation,
Thank you, sir.
and I think you understand how to proceed.
Stay in touch with Mr. Simmons and he'll,
Yeah, go home and talk to yourself in the mirror.
And just for the public that's in attendance, the recommendation this evening will go before the village board on December 7th. That meeting will be at 6 PM in the same room on that date.
Yeah. So we'll wish you continued success. We'll wish you and your family happy Thanksgiving.
We will be here.
Okay.
I would like to give you guys some suggestions about what hoops to make these, I'm gonna call them spas, go through to get their license. Somebody mentioned the state does license therapists. So every single one of these spas needs to have at least one licensed person.
Mhm.
And if they only have one, that person needs to be there all day,
Yeah.
every day.
Right.
So would recommend any non-chiropractic massage establishment probably should have 2 licensed therapists with the state. Now, going further, the state does come in and inspect. They are after the, what you would call, and I'm sure that's what this is mainly about, is the illicit work. We don't want them in your town either, because it just puts a blemish on people like my wife.
I understand. So if I could offer a comment around this, you may want to provide those comments in advance of the meeting,
Okay.
but I'll leave that to your good judgment. That's completely up to you.
Well, you know what, I'll get together with Brian, and I definitely have some good recommendations for you to keep the flow of establishments from coming into town.
Understand. So thank you very much.
Crystal Lake had a horrible problem a few years back. I don't know if you guys talked to them at all, but there was fun on every block.
Yeah.
And they weren't doing the
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you. Nice to meet
Are we
you.
done, or?
Yeah, this portion of the meetings is concluded, yeah. Thank you very much.
Have a happy holiday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Same to you. So, gentlemen, just a couple of housekeeping issues. I am now aware that I thought tonight potentially was our last meeting in Village Hall as a ZBA committee, but in fact, we'll have another meeting.
One more.
Oh,
No, you're,
Oh.
one more meeting. This one.
okay. Yeah, we will have another meeting, and I think that one, if I'm remembering the calendar correctly, is the 9th of December?
Correct, December 9th.
And that will in fact be the last ZBA meeting, and I think will be the last official body to conduct a meeting in this facility. So that'll be kind of a historic meeting. The other thing I wanted to share with you, and for both Mr. Williams and Mr. Jasper, I have some handouts. I attended something called commissioner training via Zoom through the America Planners Association in Illinois the other day, and I thought it was quite helpful. All of us have sat here through a number of meetings over the years, and, I'm a big believer in learning, and we've talked about education, over the years and trying to improve collectively. So I gave you the document that I had received. I know they recorded the presentation, so maybe what we'll do with Mr. Simmons' agreement is try and see if we can get access to that for our members, and you can review it at your leisure. It was about 2 hours long. You're obviously not going to be able to answer questions, but a lot of good questions were answered, and if they show us the feed of the questions, maybe that'll help all of us. And then once we go through that portion, what I'm thinking is that they have professionals that do this for a living, and maybe we can do a mock ZBA, for all of us to collectively learn, some better practices moving forward. So first step first, you've got the document, and I've got copies here for those that are not physically present. And then we'll look and see if we can get access to the video. And I know they recorded it, and whether or not they'll share it's a question. And then finally, I'm going to ask Mr. Simmons, if not today or tomorrow, but moving into the new year, I know your budget's already done because you were operating in a different fiscal year. There is a membership fee associated with the Illinois Association, American Planners Association, at $50 a year. And I think we'll have to ask everybody if they think there's value in that. We don't need to answer that tonight. I consistently get emails from them about what's going on, and there are programs available to all of us at your discretion. So that is potentially a cost, Mr. Simmons, to the village. It would be $50 per ZPA member if they chose to exercise membership. So we'll have to look into that in the future. So I'll leave that with you, gentlemen. But I found this particular training particularly helpful. And I know everybody's got different experiences here on the ZBA, but I've been sitting here long enough to say, I learned a few things along the way too, so I found it helpful. And I thought it was professionally done. And it was about 150 or so people on the Zoom call, so I think a lot of people got a lot of benefit out of it.
Those must have been really tiny little pictures.
It was. I had to get my binoculars out. Yeah. But I did find it helpful, Mr. Graciano. And they really methodically went through the process, and I thought that was helpful.
Years ago, we went to, before we needed virtual meetings, we used to go to Elgin.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's where the headquarters was or whatever. We would have the live sessions there.
Yeah, I thought it was helpful. And I think we all kind of collectively came to a conclusion as we were doing the UDO that might there be value in additional education. So this might be one angle that we could pursue. But I'll leave it to everyone's judgment about whether or not it's helpful or not, and we'll move forward together.
Just one more thought. chairman becomes a member, he can share all the information with the rest of us without costing the village another $400.
That's why we have a lot of fun for Mr. Graziano, always a step ahead of the chair.
I'm always,
I get it. Yeah. And I'm happy to do that, but I didn't want to start rifling out emails, and clogging up inboxes without someone's agreement. So, but that can easily be done. And let me double check, as you're mentioning that, Mr. Simmons, do you actually receive those same emails that I'm receiving, or do you not receive those?
For the training?
Like I get every day several emails from the American Planning Association.
Yeah, I do receive some.
Yeah.
It depends on what you're signed up for from an email perspective, so you
Yeah.
might be on different lists than.
I think
what
I'm just the commissioner training element.
Yeah,
or-
so the ones you forwarded to me for the commissioner training, yes, I've received those as well.
Okay.
But there are other, depending what sub-chapters you sign up for, you might receive different notifications than I would for, but I'm a member of the APA as well, and if there's anytime a ZPM member has a question about a topic or, we're looking for more information, I'm more than happy to provide that, or obtain that from the APA, could provide that to you as well.
The one thing I can share with you is that they do have a library of information. We find ourselves stuck on a question, maybe it's a licensing thing like tonight. They have a pretty significant vault of information. So that's something to be thinking about as well.
There was a cost to this, wasn't there?
$50.
So if you're a member, is this free then?
I think.
For the training, no, there was a cost to attend the training.
There was,
The
okay.
village was willing to pay for the cost for
Yeah.
that, but that training, if you sign up for it, and they provide it on an annual basis.
Got it.
So if it's something you're interested in next year, we can sign you up for that as well, if we can't get access to the video. But certainly with that, they generally give a year's worth of membership to council members as well to be able to participate.
The way it worked last time, Mr. Stefani, is that, if I'm recalling this correctly, Mr. Simmons, we signed up, and I think they gave us free memberships initially, right?
Yeah, free membership.
When we signed up to take their class, which was $25.
Got it.
Yeah.
It was free to you, but the village picked up your tab to attend the training.
Thank you very much. Chairman appreciates that, Mr. Simmons. But I found it worthwhile, and that's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
I think I found value in it, and I think it's always good to learn. So that's kind of my kick at the can on that one.
And I'll reiterate too, that if there's ever a desire by any board member, if you want to take a training or are interested in training, the Illinois APA does a good job of, educating, plan commission members, because it's not something, it's my profession to, deal with planning and zoning issues, but it's not something that everybody here does on a daily basis. So if there's interest in, gaining additional training, the APA does have an annual conference that they provide the training for. The village is happy to pick up, the cost of attending that training in the future, but something you desire. But once I receive that notice, I do send it out to the board. So if you're interested, just let me know and I'll keep it on the tabs for next time.
Excellent.
Awesome.
And Mr. Stefani, I was thinking of you when this came up, because they
My
talked about.
apologies. I have to excuse myself.
Yeah, sure. I understand. Ex parte communications. Someone contacts you about a petition, and
Yep.
what's the legal process? And there was a very big module around that, as an example.
Yeah.
But there were many other components to it. So I found value in it. So, okay, so I don't want to keep anyone here later than necessary, but does anyone have any comments around this last part of our meeting? The next meeting will be on December the 9th, our last meeting here in this facility. Mr. Simmons?
Yeah, I'll just,
No, I'm good, Patrick.
Thanks.
I'm here.
Just quickly mention from the village perspective, again, the village is moving forward with the new municipal center. Our next meeting in December will be here, but the village is planning to have a ribbon cutting open house on December 14th. So the ZPA members are welcome to attend that. We'll likely have, and I think there may be information that goes out regarding it as well. The formal ribbon cutting will be Tuesday afternoon. There'll be a public open house from 4 to 6 that same day. So if anybody wants to view the new village hall before we officially move into it that week, that'll be an opportunity that will be there. But then we're planning to move into the facility with construction coming to completion the week of December 13th, and then we'll be operating from there the week of the 20th of December. So we will have one more ZPA meeting here, but then our next meeting into next year will be in the new building. So,
Excellent.
it looks top notch too, I'll say it.
It's beautiful. I drive by it every day. You guys should be proud of the work you've done.
Inside of it today, it looks very nice. It's
Yeah.
a big upgrade from what we we've been in this building for a long time. It'll be a nice upgrade from our current
It's
facility.
fantastic. Congratulations. Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Get to take our dividers with us?
Yes, hot dividers.
Take some souvenirs with you.
We're gonna wrap it, you can bring it home with you.
All right. Yeah, hopefully we'll be on that by the time we have our first meeting, but I'm suspecting maybe not. All right, gentlemen, before I conclude, any other comments or questions? The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.
Happy Thanksgiving.